What is mom rage? If you're feeling overwhelmed and struggle with sudden bursts of rage, you're not alone. This video will help. First, let's define what mom rage is. Then let's talk a little bit about why you can feel so angry when you love your kids so much, what you can do, some steps that you can take when you're feeling overwhelmed, and how you can get your family to support you so you don't have to do this alone. So what is mom rage? Mom rage goes beyond typical frustration or even anger. It's an intense, overwhelming feeling of anger that can sometimes feel completely out of control. These moments can be a result of high stress, feeling overburdened, having some unmet needs, or simply being overwhelmed. Does this sound familiar to you? And you're not alone. It's actually more common than you might think, especially for moms who are trying to balance very high expectations with their needs for self-care and doing all of this with very limited time or help from others. In my career as a child and family psychologist, I've had a lot of moms ask me, why do I feel so angry at my kids when I love them so much? I know. This gets to the very heart of the guilt and shame cycle that we feel when we're trying to be the parent that we promised ourselves we would be, and then having those frustrations just blindside us out of nowhere sometimes and losing our cool. Something that I want to help you to see and understand today is this is not about whether you love your kids or not. In fact, I'm guessing that that will never change. And that's one of the reasons you feel the guilt and the shame after you lose control. Control. That's the key. Understanding control and how that plays out in our role as a parent, that's the foundation to getting on top of mom rage. I'm going to address that a little more fully for you in the next video. Cue that video up to watch after you finish this one, and while you're at it, just hit that subscribe button because you don't have to do this alone. We've got you here on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. Here's another question that comes up. Well, what can I do when I feel stressed? Let's talk about some practical things that you can do when you start to feel overwhelmed or stressed. Here are 3 ideas. Number 1, breathe. Your brain's job is to keep you safe and to prove you right. And anytime your brain detects a threat, it goes into fight or flight mode. That's where the rage comes from. To counteract that, a simple breathing technique can make all the difference. Here's what I would suggest. Pause, take a deep breath in through your nose. In fact, do it with me right now. Stretch those lungs and hold. Just for a moment, while you're holding, check to see where the tension is in your neck or your shoulders, and then exhale through the mouth, nice and slow. Create a little resistance here at your lips, like you're blowing out birthday candles, and then push it out at the end. And then in through the nose again. Hold. Out through the mouth, nice and slow. Doing a few of those very focused breaths, in through the nose, nice and deep, hold, out through the mouth, nice and slow, will actually trigger a reaction in your brain that counteracts that fight or flight response. The more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. Here's another step. Step 2. Take a time out. I know, we give our kids time out, right? Sometimes as a form of discipline, but sometimes mom needs a time out. And it's okay for you to say, okay, mama just needs a little time out for a minute. And then do your breathing, maybe during the time out. But it helps to interrupt the flow of whatever's happening in that moment. Usually what you're dealing with your kids is important, but not urgent. Now, sometimes it's urgent too, I get that. But a lot of the things are important, but not urgent. If your kid makes a mess, for example, yeah, that's important. Probably not urgent, because the mess is still going to be there after the timeout. Give yourself a moment to just separate and take a brief timeout. Here's another step. Grounding. Grounding has to do with actually putting your feet on the ground. And ideally, you want your bare feet on the actual ground, not shoes on some fabricated floor that we normally stand on. Go outside. Get your feet onto the grass or into the dirt or onto the sand. Wherever you live, if you live in a place where you can do this, actually get outside and get your feet on the ground. If possible, you want to encourage your kids to do this too. So it might be something that you can work into some of the routines of being a mom, but this is good for you. If you can do this a time or two each day, it's going to help to remain calm. These are all strategies and steps that help to reverse that fight or fight process in your brain. And it's not a one and done kind of a thing. These are practices that as you practice them, you get better at it. And you'll start to feel more calm and more control over that rage response. Now, this doesn't solve the problem. Breathing, timeout, grounding. But what it does is put your brain in position to handle the problem differently. And it's kind of like learning a musical instrument. It's not something that happens just in a moment. It's something that you can develop as a skill. So stick with it and have a lot of grace and patience for yourself as you try something new. Now let's get to that last question that I mentioned earlier. How can I get my family to support me so that I don't feel like I'm doing this on my own? I guarantee your family wants to see improvement too. And I don't say that to create extra guilt on your part. Just realize the people around you are very sensitive to the energies that are happening through the rage incidents. And so they already want to see positive change, but they might be hesitant to say anything because they don't want to offend you, or they feel like they need to kind of tiptoe around so they don't trigger the rage. Let them know that you are committed. And I would generally lead with appreciation. Let them know that you appreciate their support. Thank them for that. And let them know that you are continuing to be committed to this process of learning and development and change. I heard a quote from Maya Angelou at one point that really stuck with me. She said, "Do the best that you know how to do with what you have. And when you know better, do better." There is no expectation for you to do better until you know better. So have a lot of grace and patience and forgiveness for yourself. As you move forward, you're going to make improvements. You don't have to do this alone. I've got you. I've got some positive parenting solutions for you. 5 tips to create a peaceful mind. This is all part of your process. So cue that video up next. Let's get to it.